Starting today, this is our place. Strangers can scram.
Whoa, hold on a minute. What's going on with both of you?
After my mother's funeral had just ended, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law began to insult me non-stop. My husband intervened, but the two of them showed no signs of slowing down. You're being tricked. Maybe you've been brainwashed or something? Haha. That's right. It's all because your mom spoiled you. She's the one who raised you to be this way. Your mom's to blame. When my sister-in-law and mother-in-law badmouthed my mother, my anger exploded. I can tolerate them speaking ill of me, but I absolutely will not tolerate them speaking ill of my deceased mother. My name is Kathy, 35 years old. I met my husband David, who is a year older than me, at work, and we got married 5 years ago. I used to live with my mother and husband. Reflecting back, a lot has happened in these past 5 years. 5 years ago, I was working at the real estate company my father owned. I've always been interested in the flow of people and money, so I studied economics in college and applied that knowledge to my work. However, there were those who saw my success as a result of my own ability, and those who thought it was due to my parents' influence. For example, when I heard people talking about me, they often referred to me as the boss's daughter, rather than by my name. Moreover, my husband was the top salesperson in the same company. It seems that he was popular with many women, and I received nasty glances from various people. Of course, I don't think that all of my work success is due to my own efforts. I believe it's all thanks to the cooperation of those around me. But I couldn't help but feel frustrated at being labeled as the boss's daughter. While I was living these frustrating days, my father passed away. My brother took over as president, and the harsh stares towards me became even more severe. You must have screwed up. That's why your brother's now the president. Now we'll have to call you the president's sister, right? Haha. Normally, I might just feel frustrated, but at that time, I had just lost my real father. Those words were hard to take for me, who was mentally worn out. After my father's funeral, a single thought crossed my mind. What do I really want to do? Even if I tried to keep going in this situation, something inspirational was missing. As I thought about it, I found myself saying, I want to be an investor in front of my husband. David, rather than rejecting my outrageous proposal, supported me. When I told my mom that I wanted to quit my job and become an investor, she laughed and said, You didn't have to worry about your father. You should have done what you loved from the start. Despite my father's recent death, this might seem outrageous. Before talking to my mother, I was always thinking about the negatives. But looking at my mother smile, I began to feel that the opinions of others didn't matter. While dealing with the funeral, settling the estate, moving, and other busy tasks, I started as an investor. Of course, not everything went smoothly from the beginning, but my calm and cheerful husband and mother encouraged me every step of the way. Thanks to both of them, the investments I started with my savings and my father's inheritance went well. After a few years, my income had significantly increased compared to when I was working at the company. On the one hand, I was living a fulfilling life, but on the other hand, there were two people who were a big concern. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law. My sister-in-law is 3 years older than my husband, 4 years older than me, and she's still unmarried. From the time that David and I decided to get married, I got the feeling she wasn't particularly pleased. Even my mother-in-law seemed to think that I was just a rich little daddy's girl, despite the fact that I was working at the same level as any other employee, even though my father was the CEO. Every time I went to my in-laws, she'd make snide comments when my husband or father-in-law weren't around. Being a pampered princess, I bet you can't do housework worth a dime. It's a woman's job to do the chores. Please don't make David do it. Mother-in-law, my own mother taught me a lot, so I can handle things on my own. But since I'm also working, David and I help each other out. It was his idea, actually. But there was no way my mother-in-law would accept that. Even my sister-in-law was often aggravated in my presence, saying things like, "It's absurd that a woman who makes her husband do housework can get married." My relationship with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law only got worse when my father-in-law passed away. "It must be nice, huh? Living off David's money and slacking off at home? I have to put up with so much because my husband's gone. Why is it that you get to live so freely, Kathy?" Mother-in-law, as I've told you before, I make a living as an investor. I'm not slacking off at all. In fact, I have less free time than when I was working a regular job. "If you're really making a living, at least give me an allowance. You can't even have kids. You're really a good-for-nothing wife." With the death of my father-in-law, my mother-in-law became more fixated on money. She seemed to resent the fact that I, whom she considered a shut-in, didn't seem to be in financial distress, despite the fact that I had become less active outside the home as I continued my work as an investor. But that didn't mean I was thinking of giving my mother-in-law money. She claimed to be putting up with a lot, but every time I went to the in-laws, there were more and more luxury items. It was clear where the money would go if I gave it to her. I loved David, who didn't doubt people and didn't do anything to be doubted himself, so I had decided not to tell him about my in-laws. There was one time, however, that I confided in my own mother. Why can't I have children? The uncertainty looming as I approached 35 and the constant questions from my mother-in-law about, "When will you have a baby?" got to me. Her words calling me good for nothing wouldn't leave my mind, and I ended up letting it out. But my mother just looked puzzled at my outburst. "Well, I had you when I was 35, so it's okay. God will give us the right timing, I'm sure." Her words lightened my heart. Since then, even when my mother-in-law mentioned children, I was able to reassure myself children are a gift. Now, after these tumultuous 5 years, things are finally starting to calm down. Then, suddenly, my mother passed away. She had a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Losing my mother, who has always been my beacon of light, plunged me into grief. David, who had lived with me for several years, seemed to be taking it pretty hard too, though he was kind and supportive. The funeral took place before we had fully come to terms with my mother's absence. Many people came to the funeral of my mother, who had worked as an executive at the company my brother took charge of, even after my father passed away. Among them were my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. It seemed they had timed it for when David was away from his seat. "There's no need for condolences, right?" Without even offering condolences, they started signing the register. I was simply dumbfounded at the insensitivity of my in-laws. And yet, when David returned, my in-laws changed their demeanor in an instant. "You may be going through a tough time, but Kathy's shock is probably greater. You should support her," they would say, as if they were considering my feelings. Later, when I was deeply feeling the exhaustion from the past busy few days, the doorbell rang at home. My husband, considerate as he is, answered the door to find my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Due to David's kind nature, he thought they must have come to cheer me up. David invited the two in without any hesitation. As my mother-in-law and sister-in-law entered the living room, they glanced at me and drew an unpleasant curve on their mouths. And then they uttered words beyond my expectation. "From today, this is our home. Outsiders should leave."
Mom?
David exclaimed in surprise. But my mother-in-law didn't stop talking. "Until now, we've put up with you because your mom was here. But now, only unemployed Kathy is left. If you are parasitized by such a woman, you will be ruined. We'll live together with you, so you should divorce Kathy."
What are you saying, Mom? At a time like this? And what do you mean by unemployed? I've told you many times that Kathy is an investor.
When you say investor, it sounds like she has a proper job. But essentially, isn't she just playing around, buying and selling stocks? I wonder how such a woman can be a wife. You can find a much better wife.
Hold on a minute. What do you mean by bad-mouthing Kathy? What do you two intend to say? Kathy earns her own money. Don't call it playing around.
You're being fooled. You've been together with Kathy's mother all the time. Haven't you been brainwashed? Haha. That's right. Kathy has become like this because her mom spoiled her. I understand why David wants to defend Kathy. After all, it's her mom's fault for raising Kathy like this. When my sister-in-law and mother-in-law badmouthed my mom, my anger, which had been lethargic until a moment ago, exploded. I can bear with them badmouthing me, but I will never tolerate them badmouthing my mom. Stop speaking ill of my deceased mother. I expressed my anger to its full extent and glared at my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. However, both of them were grinning, showing no signs of fear. Okay, I get it. You don't like us speaking ill of your mom, huh? Haha. Now that the mom who has always sided with you and let you be a shut-in is gone, it must be hard for you to hear the truth. I looked down to see my clenched fist trembling. In order to suppress my own outburst, I took a deep breath. And just as I was about to retort, David, not me, was the one who spoke first.
Enough is enough, Mom. Don't speak ill of Kathy or my mother-in-law. Kathy is not a shut-in. She's a bona fide investor. My mother-in-law and I have been cheering for Kathy's efforts all along. If Kathy was just playing around, neither my mother-in-law nor I would have allowed it. Even my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and certainly I, couldn't hide our surprise at the usually calm David's low voice. As for my mother-in-law, she seemed unable to digest the situation and began to hastily make excuses. Don't be so angry. Even so, the life Kathy led so far was possible because of your earnings, right? Didn't you let her live a privileged life to the point of buying such a high-rise condo? Poor David. If you live with us, we'll do all the housework. Just give us a small allowance, that's all we need. The rest is... Don't you know, Mom?
David interrupted my mother-in-law's words, speaking in a flustered voice.
This apartment is Kathy's.
What? At David's words, my mother-in-law let out an absurd cry. Unable to hide her surprise, she started to fact-check with her eyes wide open. This apartment is Kathy's? Didn't you buy it?
When did I ever say that? This apartment is a legacy from my father-in-law, and Kathy got it. That's why the title, of course, is Kathy's. Plus, we split the living expenses evenly. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but Kathy earns more than I do.
What? Not only my mother-in-law, but even my sister-in-law were surprised by David's confession. No wonder. They couldn't have imagined that I was earning more than David. My mother-in-law lost her momentum at David's words and became like a corpse. Taking over for my defeated mother-in-law, my sister-in-law opened her mouth. That can't be. Investors make that much. Making more money than working for a company just by buying and selling as an individual?
I don't know about other investors. It might just be that Kathy has a good sense for it. But facts are facts. And yet, how dare you belittle my precious wife? This is our home? Don't kid me. Both of you, get out now.
At David's words, my sister-in-law began to panic. What? Wait a minute. We sold our house thinking we could live here from today. What? Now it was my turn, along with my husband, to let out a cry of surprise.
You sold our house? Why all of a sudden? At least you could have consulted with me.
We thought we could live here. Besides, we didn't have money. I quit my job thinking you would support me. So if you don't let us live here, we'll be in trouble. Hey, Mom, say something. While looking at David with pleading eyes, my sister-in-law shook her mother, who had become like a corpse. However, perhaps the shock was too great, and my mother-in-law was in a daze. My sister-in-law, who had lost her confidence, clung to me this time. Hey, Kathy, I'm sorry. I apologize. Please persuade David for me. We can't survive like this. You said you sold your house, which means you have a considerable amount of money at hand, don't you? To the clinging sister-in-law, I said coldly. At that, the sister-in-law began to flip out at me. Don't get smart. Don't talk back. Just because your investments went well, don't get carried away.
Enough is enough.
David raised his voice, which echoed far more than the sister-in-law's scream. Towards the sister-in-law, who closed her mouth at that voice, David directed a sharp gaze.
Forget about the house. I won't even ask for my share, so just get out of here right now.
Saying that, my husband practically forced his mother and sister out of the house and locked the door. For a while, we could hear the sound of the doorbell and the pounding on the door, but after a while, it became quiet. After that, according to relatives, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law seemed to have rented a cheap apartment and started living together. My in-laws' house, which was situated in a remote area, couldn't be sold for a high price, and the land was cheap too. My sister-in-law couldn't manage to get a decent job, and their money quickly ran out. Still not learning their lesson, they had tried to rely on me and David several times, but of course, we turned them away at the door. They had sold all the branded goods they owned, and now I hear they are barely making ends meet by working part-time jobs from morning till night. Meanwhile, I've been able to live freely as an investor without anyone around to make nasty comments. And next year, we're planning to add one more member to our family, just as my mother had said. I was thankful to her once again for being blessed at just the right time.
I couldn't stop worrying after I saw the news. It said the plane my husband was on, heading to a business trip abroad, had crashed. I tried calling him, but it wouldn't connect. Please, reply. Then a casual message from my husband arrived.
Just got here.
I was so relieved, but that relief was short-lived, as the news reported right before my eyes.
There are no survivors.
What? What does this mean? Wasn't the plane safe? My name is Ella. I live with my husband, Caden, who I've been married to for 5 years, and our daughter, Mila, who will soon turn 3. I quit my job when I got pregnant, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. Mila's terrible twos have passed, and recently she's been helping me out more. It was tough during the terrible twos, but now I'm happily raising her without stress. While my relationship with Mila kept improving, Caden and I spent our days rather indifferently. Lately, he seemed busy with work, only coming home to sleep. Sometimes, he'd return with a woman's perfume scent, maybe from entertaining clients at clubs. There were sudden call-ins and working on weekends, leaving him hardly any time with Mila. Papa, do you not like Mila anymore? I hugged Mila tightly as she muttered those words, gently stroking her head. Of course not. Papa is just really busy with work. He's working hard so we can live like this. Mila's birthday is on Sunday this time, and he promised to celebrate with us. So let's play a lot then. I couldn't bear to see lonely Mila, so I asked Caden to at least be with her on her birthday.
I'll definitely take the day off.
My husband said that, so I was looking forward to celebrating as a family. Mila's birthday is next month. We plan to invite my in-laws and celebrate together. My in-laws live a 15-minute drive away in the city, and since we meet often, Mila is very attached to them. Caden has a younger sister named Camilla, who has 2 children. While my sister-in-law also lives in the same city, my in-laws treat both their grandchildren equally and without discrimination. I hear there are people who favor their daughter's children over their daughter-in-laws. If the grandchild is a girl, some even pressure the mother to have a boy to carry on the family name. That's why I'm nothing but grateful for my in-laws, who love Mila without discrimination. Then one day, my husband told me,
I have a business trip abroad for 2 weeks, starting on the 8th next month.
I immediately asked him to clarify. Wait, a business trip abroad? From the 8th for 2 weeks?
Yes, to America. The flight will take more than half a day.
As I looked at my husband, who seemed bothered, I couldn't hold back and confronted him. Hey, you know that Mila's birthday is on the 10th, right? We promised to celebrate together. I've already told her. Today she even looked sad, wondering if you don't like her anymore. Why can't he keep his promise to our daughter's birthday? Thinking about Mila's feelings is unbearable. I felt my blood boiling.
I have no choice, it's work. If I could, I would have wanted to celebrate too.
Caden's words made me realize. Seeing my husband's pained face, I apologized. You're right. I'm sorry. I just got a bit upset. I feel bad for Mila. As I said that, Caden patted my shoulder.
I'll prepare a present. Let me know what Mila wants. My parents will be there, so she won't be lonely. And I promise we'll celebrate together next year.
Okay, you better. I emphasized my point to my husband and decided to let it go this time. Although I worry about Mila, I'll do my best to decorate and cook so she won't feel lonely without Caden. I talked to my in-laws about Caden's business trip and asked if they could stay over on Mila's birthday. And then...
Poor Caden, having a business trip on Mila's birthday. Leave it to us. We'll liven things up for her. Your father-in-law has already started preparing to stay over.
My mother-in-law's response brightened my spirits. If this could make Mila happy, even just a little. The next day, I told my daughter about the overseas trip. As expected, Mila teared up, looking sad. But you know, Grandpa and Grandma will stay over for your birthday. I tried to sound cheerful, and in that moment, Mila's face brightened. It seemed to lift her spirits a bit. The day after Caden left for his business trip, my mother-in-law called.
Ella, do you need anything for tomorrow? We've prepared a present and reserved a cake. But is there anything else you want? It must be hard preparing everything by yourself. If you need anything, just let us know. We'll come over early tomorrow.
I was grateful for my mother-in-law's thoughtfulness and immediately thanked her. Thank you, mother-in-law. We just went shopping and picked out what Mila wants. We have decorations ready, too, so it's fine. Thank you for the present and cake.
It's no problem. We enjoyed choosing them, too. Your father-in-law has been excited for a week already. I told him he's getting ahead of himself.
Hearing my mother-in-law's words, I couldn't help but smile. I'm glad my in-laws are good people. Even without my husband, tomorrow should be a fun day. After chatting for a while, my mother-in-law changed the subject.
By the way, has Caden arrived yet? He said he'd be moving somewhere else after landing, right?
He mentioned taking a smaller plane after arrival. He should be there by now, but I haven't heard from him yet, so maybe his flight is delayed. I checked the flight number my husband had given me. I'll look it up once I finish talking to my mother-in-law. Just as I thought that.
Ella, was Caden's business trip to America?
I sensed something unusual in my mother-in-law's suddenly trembling voice. Yes, it was. What's wrong?
Turn on the TV right now. They're reporting on a plane crash in America.
What? I hurriedly turned on the TV, and the emergency news report was covering the plane crash. In shock, I dropped the phone from my hand. Hearing my mother-in-law scream, I hastily picked up the phone.
Ella, calm down. It's not certain that that's Caden's plane.
You're right. But even as I said that, I was overwhelmed with anxiety. What should I do? If something happened to him? The news anchor mercilessly presented me with an unwanted fact. They mentioned the same aircraft name as my husband's flight. Mother-in-law, this is the plane that Caden was on.
What?
What should we do? Caden! Faced with the unbearable reality, I collapsed to my knees. I felt my mouth rapidly drying up, tears flowing from my eyes before I knew it.
Ella!
My mother-in-law's loud voice pulled me back to reality.
Ella, stay strong. We don't know what's happened to Caden yet, do we? Call him first. I'll hurry over to your place right now, so calm down, understood?
Yes. After hanging up with my mother-in-law, I immediately called Caden, but all I heard was the empty sound of the call ringing. No way. How could this happen? Why won't he answer the phone? Desperate, I texted my husband, "Are you okay?" I tightly clutched my phone with both hands, staring at the screen. Then,
I just arrived.
Miraculously, I received a text from Caden. Thank goodness. I really mean it. Thank goodness. Relief washed over me, and tears flowed. I heard these words coming from the TV I left on just after I started typing a reply.
Furthermore, there are no survivors.
What? No survivors? What does that mean? Even though it was supposed to be the same aircraft Caden was on. Unable to stand it, I stopped texting and tried to call him. but it wouldn't connect at all. Why won't you answer the phone? When I switched to texting, I received a reply from him via text.
Well, I just arrived at the airport, and I have to pick up my luggage and stuff.
How could he not care about my feelings? My anxiety and anger mixed, and my irritation grew. The news said that there was a plane crash. I was really worried. Please, even if it's just for a moment, answer the phone. Show me your face on a video call.
Crash? I'm fine. I'll call you later. I have to move now.
Caden sent me such an indifferent text. After that, even when I sent him messages, there were no replies. Even though I'm so worried. For now, since I was able to confirm his safety, I'll accept that. But my feelings were instantly chilled by a call from my mother-in-law.
Before heading over, I tried contacting Caden's company. They said he's on a long-term vacation. A business trip abroad. What's that about? That's what they said.
At my mother-in-law's words, I realized everything. So, that's what it was. The long-term business trip to America was a lie from the start. Since our marriage, had I ever felt such hatred for my husband? Mother-in-law? Determined, I decided to reveal everything to her. How he hardly ever comes home. How he shows no interest in his family. And now, how he came home smelling of women's perfume. I had been reluctant to suspect infidelity based on the perfume smell alone, and tried not to think about it. But when he takes a long-term vacation and lies to his family about a business trip abroad, I can't help but think of anything other than infidelity. My mother-in-law was openly angry at my conclusion.
That stupid son. We were the fools for worrying about him. Ella, come to our house. It must be tough for you and your daughter to be there alone, right?
I accepted my mother-in-law's proposal. After the move had settled, my in-laws apologized to me again. Even my sister-in-law, who heard the story, came over and cheered me up. I felt the kindness of my in-laws once more. Even though everyone else is so good, why Caden? I couldn't help but think that. Afterward, I hired a private detective to gather evidence of his infidelity. Then, a photo of him at the airport with his affair partner was sent to me. Unforgivable! He really was cheating on me after all. Caden called me 2 weeks later.
Hello. Where are you? I just got back from my business trip, and I can't open the door. Can you come here and unlock it for me?
Thinking I hadn't noticed anything, my husband's voice was utterly indifferent. To him, I presented the harsh reality. Even if I went, I couldn't open it. I don't have the key. And even if I did, the old key should have already been replaced.
Huh. Replaced? What do you mean? What are you talking about? You're Ella, right?
I could clearly sense Caden's agitation through the phone. I moved out. I can't be a family with a cheating man who goes on a cheating trip on our daughter's birthday.
What are you talking about?
As my husband tried to play dumb, my anger surged. Do you think I don't know? I know everything. I know you took a long-term vacation from work, and that you went to Europe, not America.
Calm down, Ella. There must be some mistake. Oh, right. Mr. Cruz took a long-term vacation. Maybe you got me confused with him.
Do you think you can fool me with that? You really underestimate me. Well, of course. You've been cheating while saying you had to work overtime and go to work on weekends? Unable to hold back, I raised my voice. In truth, I wanted to scold him more harshly. But my head was hot, and I could only convey the facts. I'm divorcing you, and I'll make sure you pay alimony and child support. As I declared that, I heard Caden scream.
Wait, please.
What? In response to my question, he spoke hesitantly.
I'm sorry. I did cheat on you, but it was just for fun. The one I truly love is you, Ella.
I feel sick.
Huh?
I could hear my husband's fading voice. My words seemed to have struck a chord, but it's not enough. I still have more to say. Nice acting, but there's no way I'm going to believe the words of someone who prioritized a cheating trip over our daughter's birthday. Did you think you'd be forgiven if you said it was just for fun? Stop it. I will never forgive you or your affair partner. Then Caden, with a completely different tone from before, snapped back irritably.
Huh. I'm the only one apologizing here, and you're acting all high and mighty. Who do you think you have to thank for the life you have now? You'd be the one struggling if we divorced. Don't make a big deal out of just cheating. Birthday. You're so annoying. Is a birthday that important?
At that moment, my sister-in-law, Camilla, snatched the phone from me.
There's no way she'd want to be with someone who can't even cherish their own daughter's birthday. Huh? Camilla? Why are you with Ella?
My husband seemed surprised by the sudden appearance of my sister-in-law. But that's not the end. There's still another surprise.
I'm here too. Huh, Mom? I'm here too. And Dad too?
I then revealed the truth to my husband. We knew you couldn't come home. We thought you'd definitely call. So we all waited together. Your sister's husband is looking after Mila. My father-in-law then yelled,
You're no longer a son to us. Don't ever set foot in our house again.
Following that, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law began to pile on.
Your belongings are being stored in our shed. Come get them if you need them. If you don't come by tomorrow, we'll throw away everything that's left. Big brother, what you're doing betraying Ella, filthy. The worst. Don't ever be involved with us again. Wait, everyone. I was wrong. It was just a moment of weakness. I'm sorry. Please don't say things like that.
My husband seemed to be seriously hurt by my in-laws' words. His trembling voice on the verge of tears tried desperately to cling to something, but no one was willing to forgive him. I yelled at him. It's unbearable to be cheated on because of a moment of weakness. You've been cheating for a long time and you're still lying. How much do you need to make fun of people to be satisfied? Stop it, you cheater. If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll take you to court. Then my husband panicked, saying,
Please, no court.
And agreed to the divorce without fuss. The next day, Caden appeared at my in-laws' house and prostrated himself at the entrance. But the family only sent cold stares. Unable to endure it, he left with only the bare minimum of his belongings from the storage. After that, I made a lump sum claim for damages against him and his affair partner. Once the affair was discovered and damages were claimed, the affair partner apparently dumped Caden right away. I broke up with him, so please forgive me. Although she tried to negotiate, I had no intention of giving up on the damages. She ended up with a large debt and reportedly began working in the night industry. Once the affair became known at the company, my husband, unable to withstand the stares of others, chose to resign voluntarily. That being said, he still needs money to pay for the damages and child support. I've heard he's now working from morning till night, with no time for leisure. As for me, I still live with my in-laws. They treat Mila and me kindly, just as they did before. I'm determined to do my best to repay their kindness someday.